Fill the hearts of thy faithful and kindle within the fire of the love. Send forth your Spirit, and they shall be created. Natural interface. Let us pray. O God, who by the Holy Spirit did instruct the hearts of thy faith, grant that by the same Spirit we may be truly one, and ever rejoice in this consolation, through the same Christ our Lord. Our Lady, seat of wisdom, in the name of the Father, and the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. So like all things that have a beginning, it necessarily must have an end. And, well, all too soon, we are at our final conference. Tomorrow in the Mass, I may just have a few things to say by way of a homily and salutations. But this would be the final of our conferences. I just want to say, for the sake of the program, that after this conference, I will lead us in a little penitential service preceding individual confessions. That's what we shall try to do. And then after confessions, we will come back for Vespers. So, in our usual tradition, we'll begin to look at some passage of Scripture, and then that will usher us into our topic for today. For some time now, some young people keep asking me this interesting question, and that is, well, if God hardened the heart of Pharaoh, then how can we say that Pharaoh is culpable for any of the things that he did with regard to Israel? I think that's a valid question. In fact, we want to read from Exodus chapter 7, verse 3. It says, well, even from verse 1, let's go. Pharaoh, listen to me. And the Lord said to Moses, see, I make you as God to Pharaoh, and your brother Aaron shall be your prophet. You shall speak all that I command you, and Aaron your brother shall tell Pharaoh to let the sons of Israel go out of his land. 3. But I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and though I multiply signs and wonders in the land of Egypt, Pharaoh will not listen to you. Then I will lay my hand upon Egypt and bring forth my hosts, my people, the sons of Israel, out of the land of Egypt. And in fact, if you continue reading any of the plagues, consider for instance chapter 8 and reading from verse 15, but when Pharaoh saw that there was respite, he hardened his heart and would not listen to them as the Lord had said. So practically, you realize that it looks as if God is the one, at the end of the day, who is, hardening the heart of Pharaoh continually, and so on and so forth. So it's a problem that some of the young people come to me and they ask, if God was the one hardening Pharaoh's heart, why? Again in verse 9, chapter 9, verse 12, but the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, and he did not listen to them as the Lord had spoken to Moses. And again and again and again, the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh. So, how do we resolve this enigma of the Lord who is hardening Pharaoh's heart? I want to say that there is no easy solution. There is no easy solution to the problem. The only thing that I noticed, which I thought was pretty interesting, was the psalm that we pray every morning, Psalm 95. And reading from verse 8, every morning we say, if today you hear his voice, harden not your hearts as at Meribah, as at Mensah, as on the day at Mensah in the desert, when your fathers put me to the test but they tried me, though they saw my work. And I think that, it's an interesting reading in which, of course, the psalmist, with hindsight, is now reflecting and is going to explain to us this whole question of the hardening of the heart. And it seems to be that, the sacred writers, and of course, usually when they write these things, they know exactly what they are talking about. It keeps talking and, insisting that it is God who hardened Pharaoh's heart. It's God who hardened his heart. And then, if that's the case, well, at least Pharaoh has an alibi. Pharaoh can say, well, it's God who hardened my heart, and that's why I behaved in this way. But the problem is, when you go and then you begin to read the accounts in Exodus chapter 17, chapter 16, Mensah, in the desert where they complained about bread and food, chapter 17, where they complained about water, and Moses had to strike the rock. In fact, Psalm 95 verse 8 is particularly referring to this, as on that day at Mensah in the desert. And the point that I think the sacred writer is trying to make is this. Look at the fact that Israel, without any assistance on the day at Mensah in the desert, hardened their own heart. Or at least in the case of Pharaoh, Pharaoh can say, look, it's the Lord who hardened my heart and caused me to behave the way I did against the Israelites. What about Israel themselves? Who can they claim hardened their heart? Nobody. And they did this one of their own free will. And therefore, if you look at the situation, Israel is more culpable than Pharaoh. At least Pharaoh can claim it was Adonai who caused my heart to be hardened. In the case of Israel, they had come out of Egypt. In fact, they were free. They were under nobody's power, nobody's oppression, not even under Pharaoh's. They had been liberated. And yet, they go all out to harden their own hearts. I think the issue about Pharaoh is that Pharaoh had seen one plague after another. And still, he's not convinced, even though he has seen hail and locusts and so on. He's seen all that, God has done. God still hardens his heart, so he's not moved. Israel has seen the Red Sea parted in two. He's walked through on dry land with the water to the left and to the right. Has seen Pharaoh's troops lying on the ground dead. Has even sung in Exodus chapter 15, about the greatness and the marvels of the Lord. And after that, after seeing all that, they do exactly as Pharaoh did, except that they do it worse. Nobody has hardened their heart. They did it of their own free will. Now that, I think, is what the author, the sacred writer, is trying to point out. He says, look, these people who came out of Egypt, they were even worse than Pharaoh. But in any case, we will not harden our hearts. And that's why every morning we recite that psalm. If you hear his voice, harden not your heart. Today we want to talk about you are a priest forever, say the challenge of the permanence of the priesthood. And really in this final conference, I don't think that there is anything particularly novel. These are summaries, these are closing remarks about things that we've already spoken about. There's nothing really totally new. A summary. 2009, I was just a year in Rome. It was a Saturday evening. I went to visit some friends. And I was slouched in the couch watching EWTN. And that evening, I think it must have been a Saturday evening, if not a Sunday. The new Cardinal, no, not yet Cardinal, Archbishop of New York, Tim Dolan, was taking canonical possession of St. Patrick's Cathedral. I think that's the name, in New York. And I was watching this event as it unfolded live on EWTN. And practically all the priests came from the streets of New York filing into the cathedral. And Tim Dolan was standing at the door of the cathedral and practically greeting all the priests as they came in. Now, this was at the height of the pedophilia scandal in the US, in Europe, and everywhere. And as I watched the priests come in, they looked tired. They looked beat. I cannot forget the impression that made on me. And one by one, as they came up, Tim Dolan would shake hands with them and slap their backs and embrace them and so on. And it made such an impression on me. Now, those were hard times in Europe. I remember in Rome at the time, there was hardly a single day in which BBC didn't run some program or some comment about Pope Benedict and how he might be involved in the pedophilia scandal. Negative reportage continually on the church. Those were bad times. I remember a friend of mine, Father Tonito Mwananua, Mozambican priest, was traveling in a train to Ancona those days. I remember that he was on the train as he came back and narrated to us. One woman just came up to him and said, you are the ones who are molesting our children. And Mwananua, who is a very interesting fellow, replied the woman, Madam, if I have molested any child of yours, show me which one. I can expect that from Tonito. I wouldn't even have had the courage to respond. But those were not funny days. It was not a nice day to be a priest. If you were traveling in Europe with your clerical collar, the way people looked at you was just something. It was not funny. It was not funny. And to see Tim Dolan slapping the backs of the priests and kind of breathing life into them that Saturday evening was the most consoling thing that I have seen in a long time. The following year or so, or 2 years after that, I think it was just the following year, in the consulship that was held in Rome, Tim Dolan was named Cardinal. I went to the Basilica of St. Peter, ostensibly to see if I could find that man and say to him, Cardinal, thank you. I couldn't meet him, unfortunately. But if I met Tim Dolan, I will still tell him, thank you. And I say the same to any priest who is tired and who is fed up and who has contemplated the possibility of throwing in the towel and saying enough. To you I say, courage. Courage. There's a funny story I heard about Pope John 23rd. Says that there was a time when the delegation of priests who came to him in Vatican, and at the head there was this professor in one university, priest, Professor so-and-so. The Pope said, very well, nice to meet you. And then there was this seminary professor who came, Professor so-and-so, I teach scripture there and there. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you for the great job you're doing. And this one who came, who was, in the diplomatic service, Excellency so-and-so, oh, thank you very much. And at the end of the line, there was a parish priest. And as he entered and shook hands and said, well, I'm Father so-and-so in that parish, John the 23rd rose to his feet and shook his hands and said, you are the man. You've been in a parish before, you know it's one of the toughest jobs in the priesthood. So every parish priest and every priest that works in a parish, I salute you. You're the one that holds the faithful when they are broken. You're the one that touches the misery. You are the man to be encouraged, not to let go. It's a daunting task. And I remember that during that time of the pedophilia crisis, you as bishops, in trying to respond, came up with this catchphrase: one strike, you are out. And I want to say that once you did anything wrong, once your case came up, that's the end of the matter. Unfortunately, that policy is still out there. But it seems as if they didn't pluck up the courage to tell the media that the sacrament of holy orders, like the other two, which I believe should be baptism and confirmation, confers an indelible spiritual character and cannot be repeated or conferred temporarily. Nor did they quote from the CCC, but he cannot become a layman again in the strict sense, because the character imprinted by ordination is forever. They didn't have the courage to tell the media that the bishop who gave you ordination can't take it back from you. Oh, they can laicize you. They can withdraw your faculties. But you are at peace forever. Too bad. Too bad that we cannot tell the world that, look, even a pedophile, no, forget it. Once we ordain him, that's it. They're priest forever. Nothing we can do about it. We pray for his conversion. We can laicize him and hope that he will never not have any, he won't abuse any children anymore. We hate it. We abhor it completely, totally. We disgust it. Unfortunately, when God gives something to the man, we cannot take it away from him. We cannot. And therefore, let every one of us be reminded that we are in this for eternity. This is where we are. We better accept the situation that this is where we are. Now, The whole question of you are a priest forever, Psalm 110 verse 4, we are in no doubt where we got that idea from. Genesis chapter 14, 18 and 20, Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine, and he was priest of God Most High. He blessed him and said, "Blessed be Abraham, thy God, Most High, maker of heaven and earth." And you know, in those times, in antiquity, deities were thought of in the sense of being territorial. So, you know, the god of the Moabites, you know, ruled in Moab. God of the Egyptians ruled in Egypt. The god of the Sidonians ruled in Sidon, so on and so forth. Already here is Melchizedek, who claims to be a priest of God Most High, the maker of heaven and earth. And when the Old Testament uses those terms, heaven and earth, the merismos, that has to do with the fact that this is extensive. It has no geographical limit. And that is one thing interesting, traveling around the world. Everywhere you go, you're a Catholic priest. It's universally valid. Go anywhere you are, you're a priest. In fact, it's interesting that this Melchizedek fellow happens to be the priest of Salem. And if he's the priest of Salem, most probably, we're talking here about Jerusalem. Jerusalem. What is even more interesting is that the word Jerusalem in the Hebrew is Yerushalayim. The other day I was mentioning to you that if you hear a Hebrew word with the im ending, it means many of them, panim, plural. Or if you hear ot, feminine, plural. But if you hear the word aim at the end, there are two of them. Oznaim, 2 ears. Yerushalayim, as though there are two of them. See if there is one there and one here. As if to suggest to us that our priesthood is of both earth and heaven. As if it were already prefiguring the priesthood of Christ. Having a universal validity. Melchizedek is that priest. And that's a challenge sometimes. What it means is that you're a priest everywhere. In the church, when you travel, in your room, outside your room, everywhere you go. There's not a point where you say, okay, I'm coming to this particular place for a while. For the next 1 week, I'll not be a priest. You're going to be a priest everywhere you go. Doesn't matter whether people are seeing you, whether people are not seeing you, you're a priest. Another dimension is the temporal validity. There is no time. You can't take 2 weeks out. Even if you said to your bishop, may I, have, like the sisters have exclaustration or whatever they call it. There is no exclaustration in the priesthood. You are always a priest. There's no timeout, like when you're playing basketball. You ask the umpire for timeout. None. Always and everywhere priest. And when you're going to be that for 20 years or 25, let's go to Monsignor Agbenu and ask him how he did it. Continually, 50 years. Mensah, we better learn the secret of the game. "50 years without timeout." Even when you retire, you are still a priest. Even if you are going to two Galamsey, you are still a priest. No time out. One of the greatest challenges is how to be continually and consistently priest. Always. And that's why we will summarize the things that we need to do. We've been at this point of prayer before, and we'll just mention it in passing. And the first thing that we need to do is to continually refuel that lamp. I have 5 wise and 5 foolish virgins. Continually refuel the lamp. If we must continually and consistently everywhere be priests. Continually seek the face of God. That's the number one. Now, to this, I will add the dimension of the intellectual life. And the fact that, in reality, a priest needs 3 hours intellectual work every day. Minimum. Now, frankly, even those of us who are in academia, it's not every day we study for 3 hours. But let's say that at least one. At least an hour of intellectual work. You know, at the beginning of the retreat, you remember the post that somebody put on our platform and said, look, those retreats, is going to be very academic. But we know as Catholic priests that it's fides et ratio. Fides querens intellect. And the two cannot be separated. We must necessarily feed the intellect in order to feed the soul. Try it, you'll wither. And so fueling the lamp is as much about prayer as it is about academic stimulation. Let me chip in a little aside that we have amongst us brothers, sometimes we term fortunate to go outside and study. Let's encourage them, or even those who have to study back home, let's encourage them. Let's let them have a sense that we need them. That we need them. Let's push them to be the best at whatever they are doing. And after that, let's tell them, but come back home and help us. AAPA president, let's write to them as AAPA, and tell them that we are interested in what they are doing, that the brothers say we are behind them. If for nothing at all, but for the sake of what I said before, that in any case, the guy who founded us said that's what he wanted of us. I remember in the days when I was laboring a bit in Rome, trying to finish my doctorate, sometimes I was so frustrated. My good friend Joe asked me, Mike, why are you bent on doing this? I said, Joe, somebody must do it. Doesn't have to be me, but somebody must do it. And he must do it for us. And we need that. We need the lawyers, we need the litigators, we need the moral theologians, we need them. And even if they want to go up to a PhD, let them go. Now the funds are beginning to flow. Let's not give them the impression that they are doing their own thing and, nobody is interested in what they are doing. And no, we are interested. It's our project. What they are doing is our project. But not only their project, but each one of us also must invest in this and becoming the best that we can for the sake of all of us. For the sake of all of us. I say that at least once a month, a priest must go for confession. If you don't have a confessor, find one. Can be your own classmate, can be anybody, can be an elderly priest, but have a confessor. Father Adelaida is a sad one to be my confessor. Sometimes I wake him up, I drive to Osu at 5 a.m. in the morning, other times at midnight. I don't let the man rest. If I need a confession, he has to be there. I don't care what he's doing. And the other thing is, don't let sin get comfortable on your body. You've sinned, okay, all well and good. Head out for confession. Don't even wait till tomorrow. Go. You make it linger 1 day, 2 days, 1 week, and sin begins to stick comfortably on your body. That's not good. Okay, you've fallen, fine. Head out straight away. Lest you begin to feel comfortable to hold the sacred speeches in your hands. Don't do it. Doesn't matter if it's 11, 12 a.m., 1, go. Don't wake him up. Let him hear your confession. It was one morning I was driving to Legon, because sometimes I go to assist my good friend and brother Abetu, the chaplaincy. I was driving there early in the morning and listening to the radio. It was just up the road here, around Mambo. I happened to tune the radio on, and were these pastors, usual Sunday morning preaching. I was interested that morning, they were talking about marriage. And the pastor was counseling and was saying that in marriage, couples should have, a young couple should have some couple, probably an elderly couple, whom they respect. I don't know what Father Petegi would say about it. And that if anything was happening, they could refer that to that elderly couple. And the term this preacher on the radio used for it was spiritual accountability. I actually struck a chord with me. But I know it to be spiritual direction. There are things that I have managed not yet to do, not because of anything, but because I dread going to sit in front of my spiritual director and telling him I did this. I feel as if he will murder me. The sake of accountability, the fact that you will eventually have to go and disclose, I did this, already keeps you in a certain check. Different if you don't have anybody to account to. Then you keep going further and further and further afield. God knows where you end up. Have a spiritual director. Remember that this journey is for 50 years plus. I remember my spiritual director used to say, only a fool has himself for a director. So keep a director. It doesn't even matter if you don't see him every month. It doesn't even matter whether you see him once a year. But even the very thought that the guy is there and that eventually you have to account keeps you somewhat in check. Henri Nouwen, he says, priests need priests. A whole question about our rapport with the lay faithful, who are fantastic, who are wonderful, but does not replace a priest's friend. Does not, under no circumstances. Priests do need priests. And begin to take note in your own life, the point where you begin to shy away from priest gatherings and you don't want to be there anymore and you are not comfortable there. Be careful, be careful. Not a good sign. Most probably you're finding consolation elsewhere. Priests need priests. Right company. Priests need priests. Now, bringing this conference finally to a close, I end with this account which we are very familiar with, which we preach again and again at every wedding at Cana. I just want to make one little observation. The wedding at Cana, a very interesting story. Jesus is there, the mother is there, the wine runs out. But what is interesting to me is how meticulous that couple is. They provided everything that, is necessary. They have a guest list drawn out, they have water for ablution, everything. To the extent that they have even hired a professional wine taster, Archdiocesan, art wine taster. You cannot be more meticulous than that. If anybody tells me that this was a forgetful couple, inattentive to detail, I disagree. They had hired Archdiocesan, art wine taster. And no matter how careful you are, your wine can run out. And do all the prayers you like, visit all the blessed sacraments, pray all the rosaries, attend all the confessions, have the spiritual directors. Even that is no guarantee. It's no guarantee. It helps the situation, for crying out loud. It helps you, but it's no guarantee. Like I said, Father Kwasi asked me to correct. The devil has no virtue, he has only vices. I said, yes. I cannot contest my professor. And that is true. Of course, he said, yes, Mike, I know you were joking about it, but let's set the theology straight. The devil cannot have a virtue. But just to say that no matter how careful you are, remember that Satan was an angel of light and that he's smarter than you. And that's where I think it takes Mary. That's why, even if you are as lazy as I am, don't drop that rosary. Don't drop it. Don't ever drop it. It is this woman who sees where you left those T's uncrossed and those I's undotted. And thank God she was at the wedding that day. And even the most meticulous couple can forget something. or can be inattentive for a moment. And if she is there, she will sort you out. She'll help you. She will make a bad situation good again. Don't leave her out of the picture. Even if you can't do the whole rosary, before you close those sleepy eyes, at least a decade. I'm always inspired by Doc, who wakes up very early in the morning every day to pray his rosary. I'll try to learn one good thing from him as soon as possible. But the older ones will teach you that that is one of the great secrets. You want to go on for 50 years. I think that will be all for tonight.